Flex Network. This is the Flex Network. Flex on them. Flex on everybody. This right here is the Flex Network. Yeah. Flex.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Flex Network. I'm your host, as always, Flex Shane. You can follow me on Twitter at the Flex Network 1. I'm joined by a very special guest. He's decided to come back. It's been about a month. You guys know him as the IDP Nature Boy. I know him as Eagles fan 3535. Mike, how you doing, brother?
Well, you know, I'm trying to stay cool in the Arizona heat. It's only 115 today, to be hotter tomorrow. So
That's so crazy.
That and, you know, avoiding the rattlesnakes and the scorpions and stuff. So
That's good. That's good.
Otherwise, I'm doing pretty good. I got a couple things right here for you, Shane.
Sure.
This is not mine. I'll just put that disclaimer out there. This is my son's.
Oh,
He,
wow.
for whatever reason, is a Patriots fan, or at least a Tom Brady fan. He rooted for them while we were watching the Super Bowl back when the Eagles won it.
Which time? How many? They're in the Super Bowl so often. You have to be more specific.
Yeah, but they won.
That Eagles won that little.
They
right.
won.
Got
Yeah.
it.
So,
I like that.
But yeah,
like
no,
that.
it's I'm doing great. I think myself and all of us, we're ready, or we're hoping that we still have fantasy football in general this year. You know, and not to, I guess, bury the lead, but we saw some news come out today from a very, I guess, prominent or well-known Chiefs running back that is going to be playing this year.
Yes. Okay. So I'm glad you brought that up, because let's not bury the lead. We got to talk about it.
No, I don't like burying the lead.
Damian Williams said today, he told the media, he told the Chiefs that he is choosing to opt out for the 2020 season. Now, I think that nobody really expected Damian Williams to be just an absolute all-star this year, but certainly he was going to be relevant in fantasy drafts. That is no longer the case. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who is going right around the 2-3 turn in most fantasy drafts, is going to skyrocket.
His stock just did this today, you know?
Yes.
I think hearing the news and looking at ADP, I think it was already going up and maybe not quite at the absurd level yet, but I think now it will be.
It's funny you say that, because his ADP was right around the mid-second round, but in the last month or so, as really rookie fever's kind of just calmed down, it's found its way to the end of the second round, and then actually recently it's really more in the third round. So I just finished a best ball draft, and I got him at the 3.3 in a best ball draft.
Okay.
And then I just started another one, and I had the 101 overall. And at the 2-3 turn, I had to make a decision if I wanted to grab Clyde Edwards-Helaire or if I wanted to go in another direction. And up to this point, this will be my 13th best ball of the season. So I don't have any Todd Gurley. And I decided, you know what? I want to get just a little taste of Todd Gurley. And I didn't take Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And I'm already regretting it. So
I saw that. You better not curse me, because he is on the dynasty team that I have in your league. I'm counting on him this year to do some good things in that Atlanta backfield. So don't curse me. Just like I swear you are cursing Carson Wentz by drafting Jalen Hurts all over the place.
I get Jalen Hurts whenever I can get him in my dynasty leagues. I think he's going to be absolutely electric. We might not see it right away, and this might be one of those things that you have to wait out for a guy like Jalen Hurts. But so, Mike, you're on the clock. It's a redraft. We're not talking best ball. We're talking it's your season. If you're Sully and you got the first overall pick in our draft this year, are you drafting Clyde Edwards-Helaire at the 101, or honestly, where are you drafting him? Is he firmly in the first round now?
First of all, let's get a couple things straight. One, I'm not Sully. He is not going to repeat as the champ this year, and he will not have the number one pick. And, you know, I, as a commissioner, can assure that. But
Yeah, it's
no.
going to be rigged. So Sully is demanding that we make the picks right away here. That's not how this works. What happens is you tune in for the content, and at the end of the show, you get a little, you get to, it pays off to pay attention.
He thinks just because he's two-time champ, he can come in and order us around.
That's right. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
Yeah,
so CH, tell me, okay, you're on the clock. You're on the clock at the 110. Guys like Derrick Henry are off the board. Guys like Joe Mixon's off the board. You're staring at maybe like a Kenyon Drake, an Austin Eckler, or Miles Sanders, or a CEH. Is that kind of the decision point? Because to me, that's where the decision point is now.
Well, I can tell you this: I probably will not take CEH at all in the first round. It's, to me, it's just too high for
a rookie who hasn't done anything in NFL.
Now I say that, yeah, he hasn't done anything. Of course, we say that, and we look at what guys like say Saquon Barkley has done, right?
Yep.
There's been others as well too, but it'd be hard because also there's going to be no preseason. So the only thing we have to go on is obviously what he did in college. He plays for a coach who is still near and dear to my heart, Andy Reid. And everybody thinks he's the second coming of a player that is near and dear to my heart as well, Brian Westbrook. So I guess if you wholeheartedly believe in that, then sure, take him in the first round. But, again, that depends on a lot of things too. What is the setup of your league? Do you have the potential to play more running backs and wide receivers, things of that sort?
You're beating around the bush. You're beating around the bush, Mike. Come on, stop.
I can't.
Standard league, two running backs, one flex spot.
I can't do it.
You're not gonna. That's fine. That's cool.
I mean, it means
you're not gonna get him because
now that doesn't mean I don't believe in his talent. But I just can't. I just can't take him there.
Yeah, and we talk about this all the time, right? Just because you're quote often a guy, it doesn't mean you don't like the player and his talent and his situation. It's just push comes to shove. Is he worth drafting at that spot? Because the thing about Clyde Edwards-Helaire is that I think we both agree the upside is massive. I mean, we saw what Kareem Hunt did in his very first game, actually against my Patriots. After fumbling the ball, he just came out and he just lit up the game. We've seen Clyde Edwards-Helaire do that. From a talent perspective, I mean, the talent is there. He was my 5th ranked running back pre-draft. I was actually frankly disappointed that the Chiefs didn't take DeAndre Swift. Could you imagine DeAndre Swift? I think Jonathan Taylor is the best talent, but in terms of a scheme fit, like DeAndre Swift would have just been unbelievable. But that aside,
I think Helaire is a good fit for the Andy Reid offense. I mean, obviously he should be. Everybody's talking about, and again, thinking about, as I said, the second coming of Brian Westbrook. And we all saw what Reid did with Brian Westbrook in Philly. Now, if fantasy players remember, Brian Westbrook did break our hearts when he had that run and he stopped on like the 5-yard line and sat down. When there was nobody that was going to touch him, he would have scored the touchdown, So hopefully, if you draft CEH, he doesn't do anything like that. But no, I think he's a good fit for that KC offense. We saw what kind of offense he was in at LSU, and just the crazy things that they did there. I mean, they had the number 1 QB, they had the top wide receivers. They had a really good tight end. They've got all of those same type of players and talent in KC. So I think the sky's the limit for him, but whether or not, he'll actually get it done to the degree that we all are projecting him to, obviously, time will tell. I can't draft him in the first round with other proven talent that we know will likely be there at that point.
Yeah, I mean, let's just look at some of his college stats. So in his last season, he put up 1,414 rushing yards, 17 total touchdowns, 55 receptions for 453 yards. Now, that sounds like a lot, but his target share was only 10.2%, which is actually right in line with the other guys. So Clyde Edwards-Helaire was 10.2, Swift was 10.1, Jonathan Taylor was 10.3, and Cam Akers was 10.4 in the passing game. So from a percentage standpoint, he was actually in line with some of these other players. Keyshawn Vaughn, 10%. So look, the talent is there. The opportunity is there. We always talk about in fantasy football, when talent meets opportunity, that's when you want to pounce on it.
Exactly.
It's one of the reasons so many people are on Miles Sanders this year and why he's now been propelled up into the first round. So look, I think we're going to find as the whole drafting settles a little bit, knock on wood, hopefully nobody else opts out. But assuming that nobody of high consequence does for fantasy leagues, I'm gonna say that Clyde Edwards-Helaire is probably gonna settle right around the 10 or the 12 spots, or right around that first round turn. So if you're not on him and you're not willing to pay first round draft capital on him, that means you're out, and that's cool. That's
right,
cool.
and that's okay. When all those other players are on somebody that you're off, then you get to go and you take the guy that you want. I think another thing to remember, especially about the Chiefs and CEH, and in particular Andy Reid and how he runs his offense is, we've seen in the past where he likes to use somewhat of a running back by committee as well too. And they've got obviously a couple of the running backs there, unless any of those drop out because they get hurt or they fall victim to COVID. CEH is going to skyrocket up,
exactly,
and cement himself permanent, in the first round, where people have to take him. You have to, like you said, you have to take him there if you want him. I kind of liken it maybe a little bit to last year. How now he didn't quite get up to the first round, but I was on, and this is a wide receiver. I was on Chris Godwin, right? Because we all saw what he did the year prior, leading up towards the end of the season. And I was on him probably at least a round early, if not in some leagues 2 rounds early, because he was my guy. I believed in him and I wanted him, right? So I went out and got him. So if that's how you feel about CEH, then by all means, go out and get him.
You got to do it. Absolutely. Okay, so I'm just going to talk about some other just fantasy relevant opt-outs. So I guess this isn't a player that people are really drafting super, super highly, but Sony Michel, I think, is going to be impacted by some of the recent. So Marcus Cannon, who's a right tackle or right guard for the Patriots, he's opting out, as well as they're projected. So one of the reasons that the New England running game last year struggled so much is because their fullback got injured early on in the season. And for anybody who knows the Patriots running style, they've always played with a fullback. That's just their style. So Dan Vitale, who was supposed to be their starting fullback this year, he's another player who opted out. So for me, I mean, this is just another blow for a player like Sony Michel. And look, if you're talking about a flyer late in your draft, Damian Harris is still a guy that you probably want to go after because he's a little bit more elusive than a player like Sony Michel. And if they don't have a solid offensive line, then you're going to need those offensive players, or those elusive players, and get a little bit more creative. So, look, Sony Michel right now is going in like the 8th and 9th round. Is this a guy that you want to have anything to do with? Before it's like, okay, he's a starting running back that you can get late. His draft overall, it's actually 103. So it's right around the 9th round. He's a starting running back. You can get him that late. People are willing to take a flyer on him. Just why not, right? Kind of fill up that roster spot as your RB4, RB5. Is this a guy that you're okay taking, or is it just you would rather go elsewhere at this point?
Well, I know he's a guy that you've consistently tried to trade to me, and I've rejected those trades. Would I take him at that value?
He's been a token in a few trade offers, yes.
Yeah. Well, they've been fair offers. Just not interested. Would I take him at that value? I would take him at that value, but I think maybe the smarter play and even better value would be to take Damian Harris, right?
Yeah.
And I say that only because, God forbid, Michel tests positive for COVID. He's out. So boom, you got his backup, right? We already know Brandon Bolden, who, granted, he's just a fill-in at times for him. He's out, right?
Bolden's out, yeah.
And also, with Michel, if you take into account Michel's injury history, which I think it was the Podfather was on with Alex Dunlap over the weekend, and he went through the laundry list of injuries that Michelle had.
It's
For
crazy.
me, I think I would take Damian Harris and I would skip Michelle and just see what else is there at that point.
Cool.
Now, of course, based on roster needs and how things were shaking out, I might be willing to take him. Value, again, is good. I'm fine with the value, but I'm not big on that player.
Yeah, for me, I'm generally in most of my drafts, I'm focusing on running back early. If I'm right around the 10th round, I'm probably going for my tight end or my quarterback at that position. So I just typically am not really in the Sony Michel market in general. He's fine. I mean, if he's like your RB4 or 5 and you're just trying to draft him for depth, it's fine, but it's not sexy. It's not cool at all. So, okay, that's enough of the COVID related talk. Knock on wood. Hopefully there aren't any more major players, at least in terms of the opt-outs. Surely there's going to be some impact as
no,
we
but
get
the
more and more
thing,
news.
the other thing you got to kind of, I guess, worry about too, if you're paying attention to baseball, I don't know if you saw recently, the Miami Marlins were stuck up in DC, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
They were playing the Nationals, and I think 14 or so players, tested positive. So right there's a sizable chunk of the roster, that goes down, right? Now, depending on if they're second or third stringers, right? But you never know. Something like that happens. Hopefully you've got some backups and or your league. I know, like our league, we add an extra IR spot.
Mike, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that for a sec, because I think it's relevant right now. I mean, we're talking about it in our Dynasty League. We've already had a discussion with our season-long leagues, but and I'm sure everybody's talked about it already. If you're listening to these podcasts right now, it's because you're into fantasy football. It's the season. I mean, we're now about a month into the fantasy football season. It's a little bit obviously unique compared to other years, but hopefully you're having those conversations with your league now about some of the contingencies. And Mike, why don't you just tell us some of the contingencies that we agreed to in our league that so we actually had a call about this and we discussed it because I recommend that. This is a unique situation. So some commissioners like to do the heavy hand and just make a decision. This is the type of decision I think you need to engage all your league mates on. And why don't you tell our listeners just some of the things that we did for our league, and maybe they can take some of those ideas to their own leagues.
Sure. So, as I just mentioned, we did add an extra IR spot for COVID only designations. But now that I'm thinking about it and hearing what some other leagues are doing and how many IR spots they're adding, it might be something that we discuss amongst the league about adding some additional IR spots, right?
Well, what's interesting, sleep. We play on Sleeper. Everybody knows who listens to this show that I'm a big Sleeper supporter. I think it's the best app out there. It's one of my favorites. But one of the great things about it is that just today, actually, so we're recording this on July 29th. Just today, they added where you can update your Sleeper IR spots to a COVID designation. So if you're out for COVID-related purposes, or if your player has
then it looks like I need to go in and do some work again.
Yeah, well, that just happened today. So, for example, anybody who owns Damian Williams in your Dynasty leagues, you can go and add, assuming that your commissioner is allowing this, add Damian Williams to this new COVID-specific spot. So you can create an IR that's only specific for COVID, so you league mates can't abuse it and that sort of thing for regular injuries. So that's one thing. Adding more IR spots. I think the number of spots are probably related to how deep your league is.
Well, another good point about the COVID IR spot too that I didn't think about and came across from another league that I'm in is people always try, and we've got some guys in our league that always try and circumvent the rules, because if the rule is not in the Constitution, then it's generally allowed, right? So what the commissioner of this league said, is that you can't rush out and pick up a guy that's on IR that doesn't have COVID and put him in your COVID IR spot, right? Just to have a guy, so that you could use later, some things like that. I think is another key point that leagues and commissioners need to think about. Right. And then also, we decided that, hey, if the season for whatever reason only goes 8 weeks, then, we're just going to give everybody their buy-in back. I know some leagues are actually carrying it over to next year, so that you have an even bigger pot for next year. If the league goes longer than 8 leagues, but it ends before week 13, I believe it is, before the fantasy football playoffs start, then, we're going to distribute the payouts based off of total points, so for first, second, third, right? Now, if it were to go into the first week of the fantasy playoffs and then end for whatever reason, we've decided to let those who remain in the playoffs figure out how they want to split that money, right? So,
we decided that they would split it evenly because
right.
Once you're in the playoffs, any team could do it. Now, if they decide that they want to play it or do something differently, that's totally up to them. But as of right now, the rule is they split it evenly. So, yeah, I mean, I think, no matter what it is, you need some sort of contingency. We recommend adding IR spots. We recommend discussing payouts. For your dynasty leagues, have these discussions about how you're going to do the rookie draft next year. If there's no season or if there's a shortened season, these are all really important conversations to have prior to the season starting, because you just want to be prepared. We want this to be fun. You don't want to steal anybody's money. So, okay, we're going to take a little bit of a pivot here, Mike. One of the things we wanted to talk about on the show, we recently finished our Scott Fish Bowl Satellite League draft. We were in Conference 11 in the Connect 4 division. And, Matt and I were debating. So Flex, Matt, and I were the ones who did this draft together. We discussed every pick before we made it.
You mean you were actually able to have a debate with that guy?
Well, it's conversation. It's a conversation, And, we weren't initially planning to do a show to discuss our draft results because those aren't always the most exciting shows. But we were messaging back and forth with one of the guys in our league, and he thought it would be a really fun idea. So let's just spitball for the next, 5 to 10 minutes and just have a look at this draft. What I want to do in terms of a format. And for those of you who want to follow along, I'm going to put it up on the share screen here. But if you scroll down, you'll also be able to find the link to the draft board. We were picking out of the 7 spots. And I'm just going to read off. So I'm going to quickly share my screen here.
So Shane, also, I don't know if you want to go over it before we start going through, but obviously in particular the scoring of this, because I had heard about it before, but hadn't really looked at it, so I wasn't too familiar with it. But then when I did look at it, it's very, very different setup.
Yes, I will definitely read through it. So I guess first and foremost, your typical Scott Fish Bowl draft is you play it out for the season. The difference between this and a satellite league, which is what we were in, this is a best ball league. So that's really important because obviously the strategy changes, best ball versus a season long. Slightly anyways, it changes. But more importantly, the scoring changes. So in terms of a roster, it's like 1 QB, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, 1 tight end, 1 super flex position, and 3 regular flex positions. Okay. No kickers, no defenses. In terms of passing, now this is key. So it's 6 points for passing touchdowns, -4 for interceptions, and an additional -2 points if it's a pick 6. 1 point for 25 yards, 1 point for every 2-point conversion. Now here's the key things here. It's -1 for a sack, -1 full point for an incompletion, but you get 0.5 points for completion. So essentially for your quarterback to break even, they have to have a completion percentage right around the 68% mark to actually make money and profit off the passing. So that's key. That's really important.
And -4 interception. You better be glad or better hope you don't have to start Jameis Winston this year.
Oh, no kidding. Exactly. And that's what's funny. At the start of this, you kind of compare where players rank versus just in a standard. And Jameis Winston was like, one of the top 5 quarterbacks last year. He would have been like the 30th or 25th in this scoring format. That's crazy. But another key point here is that it is a full point per reception, but you get 0.5 points for every first down for rushing and reception. But for tight ends, they get an extra half a point for a first down and an extra half a point for a reception. Sorry, it's only 0.5 per reception, but a tight end gets a full point. So to summarize, it's a tight end premium. They get an extra half point for a first down and an extra half point for a reception. And completion percentage is absolutely key for your quarterbacks to be successful. So
right, and also real quick, Shane.
Sure.
I forget what the money in particular goes to, but correct me if I'm wrong. Does not the Scott Fishbowl raise money to go to some to a particular charity or good cause as well?
Yeah,
too? I think
so
we want to tell all the viewers about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is something we talked about on the show before. It's I believe you can still donate. It's Fantasy Cares, but the actual podathon, which is one thing that we were sponsoring, that's over now. You can't really donate to that. But if you go to Fantasy Cares, and essentially historically what it's been is they raise money to buy toys for kids during the holiday seasons for less fortunate families. This year, I believe they're doing going to donate to a cause related to Black Lives Matter and to having voices heard and that sort of thing. So obviously a very good cause, and I'm glad you brought that up because that's really the whole purpose of this. It's turned into a giant industry-wide event, but ultimately what it comes down to is a charity. So they've raised, when they were doing it, they had raised already, I think, $40,000 by the time the podathon was over. And then they typically make more money between now and the end of the season. So it's just a great cause. Fantasy Cares, you can just Google it, fantasycares.com. Check it out. Okay, we're gonna get into the nuts and bolts of this thing. We're not gonna go through every pick. We're gonna quickly go through just our draft. We picked out of the 7th spot, like I said. It's super flex, so obviously you can sell quarterbacks went early, and it's with the tight end premium markers. You see that tight ends went pretty early. So the gentleman that we were going back and forth with was a TBD team. They picked out of the 5 spot. And it's kind of funny because he was talking about some of the choices that he had when he was on the clock. And in a lot of cases, it was between some of the guys that we picked and what he picked. But really, I think this is, right off the bat here, you see in the first round, you see CMC and Saquon Barkley go off the board, which, thank you, those were the right choices.
Yeah,
but then you see both Travis Kelce and George Kittle go off the board. And to be honest with you, I probably wouldn't even consider them at our spot, at the 7th spot, even if both those players had fallen. But there's an argument for why you would get it. Travis Kelce in particular gets so many looks and so many receptions.
Well, I'll say this. I mean, obviously, with the setup of the league, tight ends get a little bit of a bump. I would have considered them in the first round, but I don't think at 105 and 106.
It's a discussion. Yeah.
Right.
It's like anything else. It's like, hey, what's the opportunity cost? And because those guys went with the tight ends, we got Ezekiel freaking Elliott.
Yep.
Who can do everything. He gets first downs. He can get the touchdowns. He gets receptions.
We got as much as I hate to say it, because he's on the Cowboys, of course. I think he's going to have a great year, provided that offensive line holds up. I think Dak is going to ball out again, as much as I hate to say that, I mean, they're certainly not short for wide receiver talent, so I think that he's going to have another good year. So I think the Elliott pick was a great pick there for your first pick.
When he fell to us, it was a no-brainer.
Yeah.
It was an absolute no-brainer. Okay, so then really no more surprises that round. Dalvin Cook, who it looks like he's going to play. He's not opting out.
He said he was going to report to camp. Yeah. So
really, with the new CBA rules, it's going to be really hard for him to actually sit out. But he could have gone, in this unique year, he could have chosen to opt out, and he still would have accrued the full season.
Right.
Because if he didn't show up to camp and he didn't end up playing, at the end of this year, he would have been a restricted free agent and not an unrestricted free agent. So that's huge. He went into 112. I think that's good value.
Right. The thing I see about Cook, and this may be splitting hairs, which I have no hair to really split.
Both, brother.
I'm actually kind of surprised, even with the setup of this league. I'm kind of surprised he lasted until the 12th round unless you all drafted before the news.
This was about 2 weeks ago.
So this was before he was going to report back.
Yeah, so the draft started
right.
The day, I want to say it was like July 5th or 6th or something like that. It was that first Monday after the Independence Day weekend.
Okay.
And then our draft was particularly slow, and it lasted about 2.5 weeks. So we finished about a week and a half ago. So it feels like a distant memory, to be honest, but it was only really about a week and a half ago that we finished this puppy. So yeah, the news wasn't out yet. There was still some risk, and that's one of the reasons he would have fallen in value.
Well, I think the pick at 112 there makes sense for that team.
Yeah. So then a bunch
you
of
know,
running backs go off the board. Devontae Adams goes at a good spot. So we ended up going here, Russell Wilson. And really the decision is if we were going to go in the direction of quarterback, because of the importance of accuracy in this league, Drew Brees was actually a first-round pick in a lot of drafts. When you look at all these hundreds of drafts, Drew Brees was one of the top choices. So really we were deciding between Russell Wilson, Dak Prescott, and Drew Brees. All have very similar numbers. Drew Brees obviously is probably the king of accuracy, but we just felt like the upside with Russell Wilson, he can get it done with his legs. He has such good rapport with Tyler Lockett and with DK Metcalf this year. I get it with Michael Thomas and Drew Brees, but it's just that added upside with rushing versus a Drew Brees. And then Dak Prescott, we like him a lot. But to me, like in this format, in regular formats, I have Dak actually one spot above Russell Wilson. Dak's my number 3 quarterback, and Russell Wilson's my number 4. But in this format, splitting the hairs, we decided to go with Russell Wilson. What do you think about that pick?
Well, at first I would say it's probably not a pick I would have made at that point. But then looking at who would have been available, to take in the 3rd round and the 4th round, and who you were able to get there, I think that was a fine pick. But I think the main key point that you hit on as to why you take him there is how important accuracy is, in the league. It's tough to pass up on some of the guys who came behind him. Several picks were right after him with Chubb and Adams and Drake, Sanders, and Mixon. But I think, based off of how the draft went, if you don't take him there, then you're not left with a whole lot, when it comes back to the 3rd round. I mean, it looks like, obviously you could have gotten Carson Wentz in the 3rd round, but no, I think that was a fine pick. I think the thing you have to worry about with Wilson, and I dealt with this last year in Dynasty because I have him, is he does have the potential, as he did at times, to lay some real duds. And hopefully they're on weeks that it doesn't hurt you. But otherwise, yeah, I think that's a fine pick overall. And also you added in the key point of his rushing upside as well, too.
Yeah, and I mean, that was a really key decision point because typically in Superflex leagues, I actually don't advocate taking a quarterback early. The reason I love this Scott Fishbowl League every year. So this is our 2nd year participating in a satellite league. We've never actually been in the main league, but there's a unique scoring strategy. So what's beautiful about it is it kind of makes a level playing field for all these different players, right? The only player that or type of position that really kind of brought down this year was the wide receiver position, just because there were so many other bonuses and advantages with those other players. Obviously, typically RB in general in most drafts is pushed up the board. The rules surrounding quarterback made it so important to get a good quarterback. And then obviously, if you get one of those top 3 tight ends, then you got to go for it. So that brings me to my next pick, Mark Andrews. Look, if Andrews was off the board, we would have probably punted tight end completely because really there's a top 3, then there's everybody else. We actually would have probably taken Zach Ertz. Actually, I say that, but we would have taken Zach Ertz over Mark Andrews because Mark Andrews' upside is in the touchdown department, whereas Zach Ertz makes his money with just the receptions. And in this sort of league where they put a premium on the receptions and the first downs, Zach Ertz would have just been absolutely amazing. I think he's going to be amazing in this league. So that would have been a decision point. But
well, I think the Andrews pick there was still a fine pick. I mean, if you look at I think a lot of the ADPs and just general consensus and rankings, a lot of what I've seen, they have Andrew. Well, some of them have Andrews and Ertz flip-flopped, 3 and 4, 4 and 3, right? But I think that's the fine pick. He should hopefully be the main guy there in Baltimore this year. Obviously, with Hayden Hurst has gone to the Falcons. So there's one guy out of the way. Although we know the Ravens generally keep about 20 tight ends on their roster. Yes. But no, I think with obviously the setup of the league, that's a fine pick. I'm actually really interested if we go down you'd have to go way down the draft board and the other tight end that you got, because there's a lot of talk about Mike Gesicki. who you got in the 10th round. And if he does what he did towards the end of last year, then that is going to be a pick that likely should help carry you pretty far in the Scott Fish Bowl this year.
Well, and that's what's kind of cool about this is that because there's so many flex positions, you can actually score both your tight ends, which I enjoy, right? You don't have to choose every single week. Gesicki, when he fell, we were super pumped to get him. In general, he's a guy that I'm pretty high on this year. I talked about why I'm not really taking Sonny Michel in a lot of drafts. It's because this is kind of the sweet spot for like the Mike Gesicki's and Noah Fants, the Jonnu Smiths, like the upside type tight ends, the TJ Hawkinsons of the world. It's such a sweet area where, look, if you don't get one of the top guys, which typically in most drafts I'm not going to in a normal league, I'm going to wait on my tight end. What's the difference between an Evan Ingram, who in theory could be very good, but he hasn't really survived an entire season yet, versus the upside of a guy like Mike Gesicki, who could just absolutely beast.
Right. And who knows, you might find a guy in the later rounds, like a lot of people, or heck, this guy last year in a lot of leagues, even some that I was in, he wasn't even drafted. You could find yourself a Darren Waller, right?
Absolutely.
It happens. But no, I think I like the Gesicki pick. Looking up and down your roster there, I see you got your boy Chark. I know you and I have been going back and forth about him. I see you got Mr. Burrow. And
what do you think about Joe Burrow this year?
I think I think he's going to surprise a lot of people. I think he'll have a pretty good rookie year. He may even. He may be in can get up to the top 20, at least inside the top 20. And I only say that because of the receiving talent that they have there, and they're getting their rookie offensive lineman. His name escapes me at the moment, but he was hurt all year last year. He was their number one pick. They're getting him back, and I think they made a move or two to bolster their offensive line. So. Obviously, provided no injuries, COVID designations. I think, as much as I hate to say it, because him and his LSU Tigers beat my Clemson Tigers, I think he's going to do really well and surprise a lot of people. He's got the talent. He's an intelligent QB. He's on a team that, for all intents and purposes, appears to be an up and coming team. To have a good offense, Joe Mixon at running back. Who I think is going to have an outstanding year. So I like him. He's definitely a QB that in other leagues, not with this format, that I would definitely consider taking late. I don't know that I'd want him as my starting QB unless I was really waiting late and trying to load up on other positions. But I think he could do worse.
Yeah, he's an upside guy. I mean, he's our QB3. We went pure upside. And the thing with this league is that I believe it's like the winner of this league has a chance to get into the Scott Fish Bowl main tournament next year. And so it's all or nothing. You either want to be first or you're last. It really doesn't matter. That's why we went with – yeah, exactly. That's why we went with Big Ben. That's why we went with Joe Burrow. A guy that I really like here that our TBD team chose in round 7, it's 7.5, is Terry McLaurin. Matt and I have had this discussion constantly as to who he would take. He would take Terry McLaurin over Chark. I would take Chark over McLaurin. It's super close. I got them back to back in my rankings. Who would you have there out of those two players if you had a choice?
Oh, well, yeah, it's that actually is kind of a hard choice, and I think you're splitting hairs there. Again, I know you and
My boy Barron would take Chark. Yeah, he would.
Yeah, well, I know you and I have gone back and forth about Chark, and again, it's not that I don't like him or I don't think he has a talent. I'm off of the Jags for whatever reason. So I'd say based on that, I'd take McLaurin. A lot of people may worry about McLaurin because of Haskins as the QB, but I mean, look at what McLaurin did last year, and of course he came out of nowhere. Really, I don't think anybody anticipated seeing that. But I don't think you could go wrong with either pick. But I think just because I'm out on the Jags, I'd probably go with McLaurin myself.
That's fair. I'm just looking at my boy TBD's team here, and he's got David Johnson, he's got Deontay Johnson, and he's got Duke Johnson. I like that. What do you think about Duke Johnson this year as a backup to David Johnson?
Well, I mean, if David Johnson ends up like last year with the Cardinals, then I think Duke Johnson will do well. It's hard for him because I traded for him in our dynasty, and I was expecting big things from him because he was going to be the guy in Houston. And then lo and behold, they go and get Carlos Hyde, who, for whatever reason, has kind of a renaissance season of sorts. Duke Johnson has the talent. We've seen it. He's produced. But now again,
Get him
he's
in the
behind.
14th round. It's all about what you got to
Yeah.
pay for him. If you get him in
Yeah.
the 14th round, I'm good with it.
That's crazy value on him too. So I think it's not like you're staking the fate of your team on him at that point, because you should have some other good running backs ahead of him. But obviously, he got the backup to David Johnson late. So, David Johnson goes down, and he's got Duke Johnson, who is more than capable. We just, the thing you have to worry about is, Bill O'Brien coming up with some cockamamie trade where, he wants to trade all his really good players for some crappy players and late round draft picks. And maybe he jettisons Duke Johnson off for nothing. I don't know. But no, I think that's a good pick there. He's got the handcuff. He's locked up that backfield. So I don't think at that point you can really go wrong, because at that point you're taking flyers sometimes on a lot of guys.
Okay, we're gonna go through one more question here, then we're gonna do the picks for our league, but we'll get to that after.
Oh,
so,
right.
Okay, so just in general, I mentioned before that the wide receiver value got a little bit depressed in this sort of draft. So we went pretty much robust RB. We wanted to get our quarterbacks and our tight ends, and we pretty much faded our wide receivers. But in the end, I think it kind of worked out. I mean, we got my boy Chark, we got Odell, which we were chatting off before, and I think that value in the 5th round is pretty crazy.
Yeah, I really, that was the pick I told you that I really liked. Now, granted, as you pointed out, the setup of the league, wide receiver value is depressed a little bit, but still, to get Odell there at that point, because if you look, you had guys like Juju was taken ahead of him. Well, actually, maybe I'll argue that Odell should have been taken ahead of Allen Robinson, and I believe
I would take
AJ Brown, right?
Yeah. See, if Allen Robinson fell again, freaking TBD, this guy. I think we were in each other's heads.
It's not that I am an A-Rob guy, especially after last year, because look at what he did with the trash QB situation he had. Granted, they got Nick Foles, the Eagles' savior, coming in. Right. But yeah, I think Odell at that point was still some pretty good value. Cool. And then I see down towards the bottom of the draft, you got your boy Andy Isabella.
Of course.
I don't know how that'll work out.
He's for your round 20 pick in this sort of format. A guy like Andy Isabella, to me, he's perfect. He's a perfect best ball play. But look, they drafted him in the 2nd round, and maybe they're going to just be out on him. They went out and they got DeAndre Hopkins, but I'm still bullish that he's going to be a situational type player. He's going to be tough to start, at least this year, but he's a guy that we loved last year. Just the talent is there. He did really well at the Senior Bowl last year. He's quick as hell, and the upside is absolutely there. So I could see him being a viable wide receiver 3, potentially flex later in the season, but it's going to be tough, man. When you talk about fantasy.
I think he's got to have an injury happen ahead of him, obviously, because I think the starting 3 are obviously going to be Fitz and D-Hop. And I think Christian Kirk is probably going to be starting ahead of him as well, too. But you also got other guys on the team, Hakeem Butler. There's some other ones.
Butler. So. And we got your boy Jalen Hurts late. We got your boy Jalen Hurts late. Had to do it.
We're not.
The nuclear upside.
Yeah. I saw you went with the nuclear option there instead of my boy from Clemson, T. Higgins. So we'll see how that pans out.
Well, we went Bryan Edwards. We didn't do but we went KJ Hamler as our last pick overall. It's all about upside. But okay, so just give me real quick. It doesn't have to be our team. Is there one last pick that stands out to you that you say, you know what, just clap your hands? You think that was a really good pick? I know I'm kind of put you on the spot here, but is there one pick that jumps out at you?
Let me try and take a look real quick. I didn't really look at the last picks of the other teams too much, except for Yours. Okay, so let's go here because there's been a lot of talk about how this guy, and I know I said I was off of the Jags, but there's been a lot of talk about how this guy could potentially be used based off of how he was used in college. But round 17, I'd have to scroll up to see the team name there, but Laviska Shenault, he's and what is he going to be slotted at in fantasy? Or is he going to be the first guy slotted at wide receiver, running back, and tight end?
He's going to be like the flanker type role, man. He's going to be the flanker type role. He's going to be moving around formations. Yeah. They're going to have my boy Chark on the outside. They're probably going to have Dede Westbrook as the slot wide receiver, and then they're going to have Laviska. But I honestly,
do you think he's going to be a better version of who was it? Was it Shoelace Robinson that used to play for them a few years back?
Laviska Shenault was a guy that I was really high on in the draft process. I really liked him. He's just so dynamic. He's the type of player that can really take over a ball game.
Right.
I was an absolute coward, and he fell to the third round, and I was eyeing Anthony McFarland. This is just in our I think Anthony McFarland.
Yeah. Well, he's another one too.
Yeah. So he was a good one that I like. They went back to back, Anthony McFarland and Laviska Shenault. So those are two great picks, two upside picks in the 17th round. I love it. So we're gonna end it there. I gotta say it was a lot of fun for anybody who is interested in doing a Scott Fish Bowl. Throw your name in the hat. The Scott Fish Bowl 11 is already up there, and so go email yourself. And worst case scenario, hopefully you can get into one of these satellite leagues.
All right. Well, hey, don't forget. Are we going to do the draft pick 100%. Slot order real quick?
Have you even cut that paper yet, Mike?
No. I got it. I never passed cutting when I was in kindergarten. So and people, I don't have grid lines here, so I can't.
So mute your phone. Mute your thing, so that the people don't have to hear your cutting. I'm gonna mute you. So start cutting here. I'm just gonna start talking.
All right.
Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are now going to do a pick draw. I think it's called Kentucky Picks, where in one of our leagues that we play in, it's the Roster Watch Listener League. It's how everybody met. It's how the Magic started. Every year what we do, and this is really fun, and I think everybody should do this, is that you randomly pick slots, and then those people can choose their draft positions. So in the very first year we did it, the Roster Watch guys did it for us. Last year, Mike just did it and recorded it. People thought it might have been a little bit shady. If the first video didn't quite work out for him, although I will admit he did give Sully the freaking 101 last year. So as long as it doesn't happen again this year, and Mike, if you got to rig it just a little bit. So.
Hey, no. See, I want real quick before I finish the cutting. There are my name. I'm Big Stick Nick. It's only on here once.
Okay, Mike.
So nobody
I muted
can accuse me of rigging it.
Mike, I freaking muted you so that you can do the cutting. He's not doing the cutting.
Like, see, that's why
pull
I
back
didn't
the
pass
curtain.
in
To pull back the
kindergarten.
curtain a little bit. I said, Mike, you have two jobs. You need to show up on time, and you need to have the freaking draft thing ready so that at the end of the show, we're not going to bore the
as
people.
Commissioner, I only work once every 3 years, right? Okay, so
yes.
Let's get that straight. My 3-year-old.
Okay,
my 3-year-old comes and asks me for help in cutting. I can't do it.
I'm going to mute Mike again, and I'm going to get some of the groundwork off here. Some of the homework before you do this. So ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to the Flex Network. I'm going to get this out of the way. If you like what you're listening to, it's kind of unique content. Please go and you can download our podcast. Just search the Flex Network anywhere you can find podcasts. We're on YouTube. We're on Facebook. Apparently, I'm told that we now are trying to amp up our social media game. So I'm all over Twitter along with Flex Matt. You can obviously find our boy Alan Seslowski on Twitter. But we're rocking the Instagram world now, and we're just trying to up the content. So if you like what you're watching, please comment. We'll comment back in the YouTube comments. Please please subscribe. Tell your friends. Don't tell your friends because you like what you're listening to and you don't want to share the content. So it's all good things. So this year, we're going to try to get out as much content as we can. We're going to be doing at least 3 shows a week. We're going to be doing a waiver wire show. We're going to be doing a weekly start sit show. and then which is live on game day morning, and then we're going to do a
Clarify
show
what
during
kind
the
of
week.
show that was, Shane?
That was live with Roster Watch last year. Mike, I'm glad you asked.
Sit.
I call it start. I say start shit. It's an inside
hey,
joke.
I'm done cutting. I'm folding the names, putting them into what is my daughter's Easter bucket right here next to me on my desk. I'm not putting in any extra names for anybody. The only name that I'm taking out is Sully. He is not going to be in there.
Nothing nefarious. We look.
Well, I think that people should also know Shane, even though he might be the most recent champ, actually 2-time champ last 2 years, you are the inaugural winner, right?
That's right.
So
banners fly for life, baby. Banners fly for life. That's what we always say.
Okay, you ready to do this? Have a belt to show it. Yeah. I'm like I said, I did not do well in cutting in kindergarten. I did not do well as far as speed is concerned in folding of the papers.
Okay, this is exactly what the people want. This is just pure content. This is just radio.
It's drama. You gotta string it out, right?
You gotta string it out.
All right, so here we go. Mix it up.
Okay, we're gonna do it. So again, essentially what we're doing here, people, for those of you who are still tuning in who aren't part of the banana.
Looking in the bucket. The bucket is here, down to the side. I'm not looking.
So we're gonna do the order in which you can choose your draft spot.
Right. So whoever I draw first gets first choice in picking their draft slot. And man, if it's me, I'm going to be ecstatic, but I'm sure everybody's going to say it was rigged.
So take it and put it up to your camera, and then that way the people can see it.
All right.
Say the name and put it up to the camera.
Here we go. Person who will get to choose their slot first. Oh no, I can't believe this.
Who is it? Oh damn it! It's the Baron. No,
Baron.
All right. Number 2. So put that one to the side.
I'm charging you with recording this. Okay.
I'm recording it.
Recording the names, that is.
We got it live. It's live on air right now.
All right. Pick number 2 is our boy out there in LA, Isaac.
Okay.
Team I-544C.
Yeah,
I thought he might go by like I-405 or some interstate out there that we all hate driving on. I used to live out there, so I can sympathize with him when he drives on the freeway.
Number 3.
Third person is Kevin.
All right.
Shane, our names haven't come up yet.
No, I don't like that.
But neither has Sully.
Ooh.
All right, so we have.
that would be me.
Oh,
baby.
There you are.
Right in the unsweet spot at number 4.
All right, shuffling around again. All right, who do we have here? Season long, our boy says.
Our boy Alan Seslowski at Alan Seslowski on Twitter.
The guy who has screwed me over in trades so many times, most notably.
Alan had Chris Liss on the.
I did.
Yeah, DFS Army Pod this week.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, and I know Alan does some sort of spot once a year for them, where he does kind of like a recap of their year or something of that sort. Yep. So it's great for the folks to go out and listen to. We got some of our guys that are, off of the Flex Network and DFS Army that are hitting the big time there with the guys on Sirius XM. All right, so next one. Oh god, we should have took this name out of the bucket too.
Yes.
This guy, the guy who claims that hard seltzers are the greatest drink in the world.
Yes.
Let's see here. Next one is our boy Chris. All right. Man, I'm still in there. Sully's still in there. Let's see. This one. And there we have it.
On the board at number 8. You hear that, Sully? No CMC for you this year, brother.
Nope.
The mouth.
And this guy.
What does that mean? That's Charlie.
Derelict co-commish.
What did that even mean?
If there's anybody that does less work than I do as commissioner, it's that guy.
Yeah.
That guy, right?
Charlie number 9.
Oh.
Your name yet, Mike?
No, and I'm going to be stuck with the last draft choice.
That's Ryan, our boy Ryan Yeager.
Ryan, yep.
Ryan, who is also, I don't know if you knew that, he lives in Calgary as well. He is my neighbor.
Well, I knew. I knew he was one of several Canadians from the league that lives up there. We have Gutsman,
man.
so Greg.
Oh, you know what that means, Mike?
Oh, am I last?
You are dead last.
No, I'm just gonna officially draw, right? So just so we can say it. No,
So that's
upside down, please.
Big stick, Nick. So that's how you guys know this shit wasn't rigged, because Mike chose himself last. Unless that was part of his strategy because he wants to get CEH at the turn.
Hey.
That's
Well,
brilliant.
see, now I'm going to have that difficult decision. Am I going to go back on my word to not take CEH in the first round?
We'll see
Unless somebody ahead of me, takes him. But a lot of us, most of us, utilize some of the same tools, and we generally don't deviate from those tools. So we'll have to see.
Go. So, all right. So, Mike, how do the good people find you again?
Well, I'm off the grid. I don't want anybody to find me. No, they can. I'm pretty much just on Twitter right now. Eagles fan 3535. So they can hit me up there. I'm more than happy to talk fantasy football, in particular IDP.
Yes,
because
IDP
it's in my name. Yeah.
Right.
But they can catch me there on Twitter.
Awesome. Well, thanks, brother. Really appreciate you coming on. Hopefully, we created a little bit of drama for the Banana Hammock Boys Roster Watch Listener League. For Al, for Mike, and for Flex Matt, we are the Flex Network.
This is the Flex Network. This is the Flex Network. Flex on them. Flex on everybody. This right here is the Flex Network. Yeah.